Hi, I'm Coach Daniel, and if you want to sleep amazingly well for the rest of your life, this channel is for you. Have you ever wondered how it is that sleepiness can be really strong only to suddenly disappear, vanish into thin air? If so, this episode is for you. We're going to discuss why that happens in this episode. We have a question that kind of triggered me to make this episode today, which we're going to look at as well. But before we do, we're actually going to start off talking about, briefly here, talking about the function of sleep, and then we're going to make our way to like why this phenomenon happens and how you can get past it as well. So, let's start with that kind of very basic question that we almost never talk about, like what is the function of sleep? Why do we sleep? Well, the prevailing hypothesis is the synaptic homeostasis hypothesis or model, which basically goes as follows: that when we're awake, we are exposed to a lot of information. We touch things, we hear things, we see things, all that is stored temporarily in our brains. If we were awake indefinitely, then it would just not work. We would be unable to create new memories because we would run out of storage capacity, like run out of physical space, because those synapses where memories are stored, there wouldn't be enough space for more or energy to support them. Like we would literally not be able to create new memories. So therefore we have sleep, whereby there's this like pruning going on. Those memories that are not really tagged as important are let go of, and the ones that are tagged as important are kept and in fact strengthened. So that is kind of the prevailing theory of why we have sleep. But there's another very important one here, which is the Dr. Medis Hypothesis, which basically it says that sleep is kind of a safety thing. And it goes as follows: that we humans are a diurnal species. We are meant to be awake when it is light outside. Our senses are specialized for that type of environment, as opposed to like a panther or something like that, which is a nocturnal animal and has like these eyes that can see really well in the dark. And a lot of predators are nocturnal. So why do we sleep? One theory is that if we were out there, scavenging, looking for fruits or berries or hunting or whatever it was, if we did that like when it's really dark outside, then we would easily become prey to these nocturnal animals that are specialized in being out there hunting at night. So it would be safer then to actually find a safe place and lay there motionless for a number of hours. So that's another theory of why we sleep. And something that supports that is that like really big animals that don't really have many like natural enemies, like elephants, they sleep very little, and small animals like, koalas or something like that that are quite vulnerable, they sleep a lot. So keep this in mind as we move forward. So we talked about the safety aspect, and now we're going to move over to some sleep physiology here. Many of you have heard me talk about the gas and brake model very briefly. The thing that makes us sleep, is basically how sleepy we are. The longer we've been awake, the sleepier we become. That's the gas in our sleep system. And we also have a brake in our sleep system, which is hyperarousal. When we are kind of on edge, we are anticipating something to happen. We are maybe stressed. Stress can cause hyperarousal, so can worrying, preoccupation, excitement, puzzlement, etc. Now, another way to phrase this is we have a collision avoidance system. A collision avoidance system, just like that car you drive that has like it's kind of like semi-automatic features. When your car senses that there's an obstacle in front of you, it hits the brake for you. It automatically hits the brake to keep you safe. And we're going to see that that is the key to understanding how sleepiness vanishes. So with that said, let us actually switch over to our the comments that came in today that made me do this video. And it's from Fiona. It's a comment on Insomnia Insight number 52, and she writes the following. The Sleep Coach School, your playlist has been really helpful, and I'm feeling more relaxed now. I don't really have any panic attack anymore, but I'm still worried at nighttime. Not as bad as it used to be. When I'm sleepy and calm, the jerks keep happening, and it removes my sleepiness, and I end up not sleeping at all again. And here we have that classic, confusing phenomenon. It removes my sleepiness. So why does that happen? Well, that happens because your collision avoidance system has identified a threat, and it makes you awake to make sure you are safe. It's literally like that car again that just hits the brake to make sure you don't get hurt. Your collision avoidance system in your brain hits the brake, wakes you up to make sure you're safe. And in many circumstances, it is very good to have such a collision avoidance system. For example, when the fire alarm goes off, you're about to go to bed, but that fire alarm goes off, you don't want to sleep at that point because you literally could get hurt. So it's very good that that trigger is alerting you and you wake up. Or you're about to go to sleep, but your little baby is crying for food. That's supposed to wake you up so you can tend to your little baby. It's helpful to have that collision avoidance trigger there. Or, you're about to go to bed, about to sleep, but then suddenly you remember you were supposed to pick up your friend at the airport who just came in. You immediately wake up and go get your friend. So those are some helpful triggers when that collision avoidance system is supposed to kick in. It's good to have the system. It's for safety again, but sometimes it can get confused. Sometimes it can get triggered for perceived threats that aren't really supposed to trigger it. For example, fear of wakefulness. This is basically insomnia. When your collision avoidance system has identified wakefulness, being awake, as a problem, as a threat, and bizarrely, when you're about to go to sleep, the fear of, oh no, I'm going to be awake all night, ding, that hits that brake and you are awake. That is insomnia. Number two, and I specifically put this in there because of Fiona's comment, jerks, common one too. These hypnic jerks are common. They happen to all of us, but sometimes they trigger that collision avoidance system. Your brain is thinking, those jerks cannot happen. They're a problem. I don't want them. And then when you go to sleep, you're afraid of having a jerk. It happens again, and ding, it triggers that system, and you're super alert. Fear of hypnic awareness, very similar. You're fearful of having that moment when you realize you're falling asleep. That triggers the system. Fear of the big one. You have had trouble sleeping in the past, and you're worried about having it again. You're about to sleep, and you start thinking about that big one. That triggers it. Fear of inability to function is a common one. You're about to go to sleep, but then you think about, oh no, tomorrow I have all these things to do. I'm not going to be able to work tomorrow. That's a common one. And then finally, going crazy is one that you hear sometimes. Like, I'm so worried that not sleeping is going to drive me insane. That triggers it. So now we've seen why this happens. Why you can be really sleepy, and then suddenly that sleepiness goes away. Often you're not entirely aware of the thoughts that are happening in your brain. They can be like very, they can be almost on a subconscious level. So you're feeling really, really sleepy, right? And then you go to bed, and immediately that it seems like the sleepiness vanishes. Some of those thoughts we talked about has triggered that collision awareness system, and you are wide awake. That is why that happens. That is why it seems like sleepiness completely vanishes and disappears, but in reality, there is a very specific reason for that happening. Okay, so now that we talked about all this, what should you be doing? Well, the best thing always to start with is education. When it comes to, for example, the fear of losing your mind, that cannot happen. When it comes to insomnia in general, kind of the fear of wakefulness at night, education is great, and always try to make wakefulness your friend. When you're awake, don't fight it. Do something you enjoy, or at least something neutral, something productive. Make wakefulness a friend. Super important. Be willing to experience things. Like, the more you're willing to have a hypnic jerk, the more you're willing to have hypnic awareness, the more you're not fighting it, resisting it, the more you train your collision awareness system that this is not a real problem. You don't need to hit the brake for this. And challenge thoughts like the one where you're thinking, if I don't sleep, I'm not going to be able to function tomorrow. Find evidence that that's not true. And the key here again is always train that collision awareness system that these things it is hitting the brake for are not real threats. They're not a fire alarm. They're not a baby crying. They're not something important you have to do. It is perceived threats for which it is hitting the brake. So I hope this was helpful to you, Fiona, and anyone else that tuned in. For everyone that is finding all you need in these videos, that is perfect. That is my goal. If anyone needs a little bit extra support, then consider the BedTyme app that is on both app stores. I'm coaching there, and hope you can find that really helpful if you need that. And if anybody has any question, then please leave a comment in the comment section or send an email to questions@thesleepcoachschool.com. With that said, hope you have a really nice day, night, morning, whatever time zone you're in. And I look forward to having you back here real soon. Until then,